Magic Misfits, Chapter 7. Carter spent the warm day in the park reading the book Mr. Vernon had given him. He'd never owned a book before. As soon as he opened it, he was unable to remove his eyes from the simple black and white illustrations explaining magic tricks he'd once thought impossible. He pored over the drawings and words from cover to cover. Then he began again at the beginning and started to memorize the first trick. Before he knew it, the bell in the town hall clock tower chimed 4 times. Looking up from the book, he discovered that mineral wells had come to life. A great many people, of all shapes, sizes, colors, and ages, walked along Main Street. The adults were carrying shopping bags filled with clothes and groceries and art supplies and antique knickknacks. The kids wandering home from school wore heavy knapsacks on their backs. It's been a while since I've done this. A large sign had been erected on an easel in front of the huge gazebo. It read, "B.B. Bosso's Carnival, in town for a limited time. Big top show tonight. Finale fantastic tomorrow at the Grand Oak Resort. See the world's largest diamond." 4 performers, dressed in matching jackets with red and white vertical stripes, bow ties, and straw steamboat hats, climbed the steps up to the gazebo's platform. 3 were men, and 1 was a woman. Though they all looked somewhat similar, each stood out from the next. One man was tall with a razor-sharp snout. Another was short with a curly mustache under a bulbous beak. The third man was medium height. His face was scruffy and his belly spilled slightly over his belt buckle. The woman had a great big smile with teeth that flashed an almost blinding white. Carter slipped his book into his satchel and walked over to watch. The 4 singers hummed. Then, like spokes on a train, the 4 bobbed up and down in unison. Pock, pick, pock, pick, pock, pick, pock, pick. "Look, a barbershop quartet," someone said. A circle of onlookers began to gather in front of the stage. Somehow the singers kept alternating the pock-pick rhythm the whole time they sang. "What a town, what a town, what a marvelous town for a show." I'm not a singer. "You have rings, you have gold, you have fortunes untold to blow. Hold your hats, peel your eyes, 'cause you're in for a surprise. One thing is for sure, we sing now to procure." Their hats raised in harmony. The 4 held the note so long the crowd began to clap. In unison, the singers wheezed for breath comically before launching into a rhythmic chorus. Pock, 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 pick, 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 walk, 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 trick, 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 trick. Hats in their hands, the foursome descended the steps and fanned out into the crowd. They danced with a tall woman wearing a pearl bracelet. They embarrassed a shy man who held up his hands in surrender. They blew kisses at a blushing lady with gold earrings. They tweaked the nose of a beaming pig-tailed girl with a lollipop. The crowd continued clapping, many giving them the loose change from their pockets and purses. Within moments, all 4 singers' hats were overflowing with coins and bills. They're still singing. I'm not going to sing it. They flapped their arms and waddle-stepped like crooning chickens back to the stage, where they dumped their hats into a dirty white sack marked with a big black dollar sign. But as Carter looked back through the crowd, his learned instinct kicked in. The tall woman no longer had her pearl bracelet. The shy man no longer had a watch. The blushing lady no longer had her earrings, and the pig-tailed girl no longer had her lollipop. The audience had been so impressed with the singing that they had not noticed the singers taking more than tips. As part of their finale, the stripes of their jackets switched from red to black, as if somebody pulled a tab in a pop-up book. The show people now looked like jailbirds with their bag of money. The crowd went wild. No one would have guessed their act wasn't a joke. They were crooks. They had robbed the watchers blind. Carter felt a pang in his side, but he ignored it. He didn't know these people. It was none of his business. Was it? Thank you, residents and visitors of Mineral Wells, the pockpickets cried out in unison. Come to B.B. Bosso's carnival and stay for his magic show at the Big Top at the end of the night. And if you want to be truly amazed, come to his finale fantastic tomorrow night at the Grand Oak Resort, where you can also see the world's largest diamond. One night only, it's not to be missed. Carter turned to leave when a voice from the crowd rose up. Wait! Don't not go! A brown-skinned boy in a tuxedo with a white bow tie stepped to the front of those gathered around the stage. Is that the end of your performance? That's the spirit, one of the pockpickets said. How about an encore, gang? The four started snapping their fingers, but the boy held up his hand. Please, he said, do not sing another note. My ears cannot take it. Carter thought the boy was part of the act until he saw irritation and confusion flashing across the singers' faces. Stepping on stage, the boy reached inside his pants pocket. He jiggled his hand as if looking for keys or spare coins, then produced a violin bow, far too long to have fit inside a pocket. The bow was exquisitely constructed of dark polished wood, with tapered black ends and strung with a ribbon of silvery horsehair. Carter's curiosity was snagged. The boy knew stage magic too, but how did he fit that bow in his pocket? You want to play something? Said the tall pockpicket. Be our guest. The foursome began to hurry off, but the boy pinned their bag of loot to the ground with his foot. Hey, get your own tips, kid, the pockpicket with the scruffy face hissed. I do not want your money, the boy said, and my name is not Kid. My name is Theo Steinmeier. And I wager that you will stay for my act. Theo's hair was short and dark, his eyes were thoughtful, and his long nose had a regal look to it. Carter arrived in the front row just in time to see a violin slide out of Theo's tuxedo jacket and into his left hand. Carter was good at sleight of hand, but Theo's moves were astounding. He immediately wished he could watch the move again in slow motion. Theo lifted the violin to his shoulder, rested his chin on its edge, and began to play. The money sack began to move. It seemed to dance in sync with Theo's violin music. Okay. The crowd began clapping again. Carter stared at the money bag shuffling away. It reminded him of Vernon's move that morning, making the playing card dance. But how did they do it? It wasn't magic. It had to be some kind of trick. There is a unique connection between each of us and our possessions, Theo said as he played, his eyes fluttering nearly shut as if under a spell. Carter couldn't tell if the boy was acting or if he really believed what he was saying. When a beloved object is lost, it longs to return to its owner, said Theo. The bag jerked across the stage until it leapt off and onto the ground. Theo walked after it, the spectators moving aside to let him pass. The restless bag of loot came to attention in front of the tall woman, like a dog wanting to be pet. Ma'am, said Theo, playing more quietly, have you lost something? The tall woman looked inside the bag and shook her head no. The crowd became confused and began to whisper. The violinist began to sweat, but Carter understood. Theo was trying to help those who'd been robbed, but he mistakenly assumed the pockpickets had placed the stolen goods in their loot bag. Carter eyed the singers, noticing a lollipop stick peeking out from a pockpicket's back pocket. Carter wondered about the violinist. Why had Theo been trying to help a bunch of townspeople by foiling the pickpocketing singers? He obviously knew a little magic himself, but what was in it for himself, for him? It's none of my concern, Carter tried to tell himself, but was that true anymore? As the crowd began to mumble and ask questions, the violinist turned pale. The pockpickets started stalking toward Theo with red faces. The boy had stumbled onto the trouble that Carter had been trying to avoid. Keep playing, Carter suddenly yelled, surprising himself. He made eye contact with the boy in the tuxedo and gave him a reassuring nod. Nervously, Theo began to play again, and the sack began dancing along with it. Carter pretended to dance, then bumped into each of the pockpickets, one after the other. Isn't this music great? He shouted at them. The singers didn't notice what Carter was doing. He was pickpocketing the pockpickets. One pockpicket's pocket picked, two pockpickets' pocket picked, 3 pickets pocket picked. 4 pickets pocket picked. Say that 4 times fast. It actually says that. Go on. I'll wait. Carter winked at Theo to keep going. Continuing to dance through the crowd, Carter bumped into the tall woman, slipping her pearl bracelet back onto her wrist. He barreled into the shy man, slipping his watch back onto his wrist, and he knocked into the pigtailed girl, plopping the lollipop back in her mouth. Plop! But the earrings? Carter had no idea how earrings worked. How could he put those back on without the woman noticing? Theo met his eyes, and both boys knew they had an understanding. Theo danced the money bag back onto the stage, finishing out his song. Thank you, kind audience, for allowing me to play. As he took a bow, Theo tossed his violin high into the air. The entire crowd gasped, looking up. As gently as possible, Carter slipped the earrings into the lady's handbag. Theo caught the violin with ease, and everyone began to applaud. Patting their pants, the pickets finally realized that Theo and Carter had outsmarted and outpickpocketed them. The singing quartet glared daggers at the two boys as they slunk away from the gazebo with only their bag of tips. Theo and Carter shrugged, then burst into laughter. They were so distracted that neither noticed the slim woman dressed in a slinky black dress and a pillbox hat with a web-like veil over her face. She stared at them, her fingers twitching like spider mandibles, chewing a meal. The end.